morning, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we will be reviewing UFC Paris, and we'll be looking through the main event when Ciryl Gane bounces back and gets a good win. We'll talk about Namajunas losing to Manon Fiorot in a flyweight debut, and we'll be also talking about the controversial ref decision in the Gomis fight. And much more. But before we get into the video, everyone that's watching, make sure to hit the like buttons, hit the share button, and please subscribe to the channel. We are on the journey to 200 subscribers, so any support will be much appreciated. So yes, let's get back to the card. UFC Paris last night, massive success. They did this last year when Ciryl Gane headlined against Tai Tuivasa. First time that the UFC has come to Paris, because I believe MMA was illegal in France till 2020, and which is crazy considering that the talent at the moment that is coming out of France. And I have to say, the European crowds are just different. The crowds outside of America are different. I think it's because the UFC doesn't come to Europe as much. I think the crowds treasure it more, if that makes sense, because that was the second time they've come to Paris and the crowd was electric throughout. It's the same when it came to London, electric crowd. When it travels internationally, the crowds are just electric. I think that's because the UFC doesn't come there as frequently. I think that's why sometimes the crowds are better. No shade to the US crowd. This is not bashing the crowds in America, but I think it's because the UFC, the cards are always in America. I think it's like, yeah, when they go abroad, it's like, oh my God, the UFC's coming, going to make some extra noise. But yeah, the atmosphere in France was electric. And you know what else was electric? The French fighters on show did not disappoint. There is definitely lots of talent in France. And the spearhead of that talent is Ciryl Gane. This was a big fight for him against Sergey Spivak. Ciryl, we know, came off that loss to Jon Jones, a very lackluster performance by Ciryl Gane. We all knew that Cyryl's biggest weakness was the takedown defense. We saw that when he fought Francis Ngannou. Francis, we never really associated him as a grappler, but the fact is that Francis, with no knees, easily out-grappled Ciryl Gane. You're thinking, oh no, when he fights against Jon Jones, and you're hoping he would have done some sort of wrestling defense. But yeah, Jon Jones just walked straight through him. Easy first round stoppage. And then you're thinking from there, okay, what does Ciryl want to do next? Is he going to be focused? Who's his next opponent going to be? And when Sergey Spivak came out, I was a bit like, okay, an interesting opponent. Not the biggest name in the division, but the opponent made sense, because when you look at Sergey Spivak, he's a takedown machine. Takes down all of his opponents in the UFC so far, apart from Tom Aspinall. But his main game is about his grappling, about his wrestling, and I predicted massively incorrectly on Combat Catch Up on the Sanderson show. Link will be for that in the description. I predicted that Sergey Spivak was going to win by submission, because I believed that he was going to take down Ciryl Gane and then be able to submit him from that position. Well, I was horrifically wrong. Yes, Spivak did shoot him for the takedown, but we saw that Ciryl must have been learning some of that wrestling defense with a good sprawl. And then from there, on the feet, we know on the feet in this matchup, Ciryl was always going to be the favorite to win if it was a stand-up fight. We know Ciryl striking from range, excellent. just figuring out the distance. His striking when it came into close quarters wasn't as smooth. It did look a bit clunky when he came closer together. The striking wasn't as crisp compared to when he was fighting at range, which was very interesting. But yeah, he got the win. He got the win through a body shot, a knee to the body. I think I don't know if the rib Spivak may have broken a rib because it looked like his rib popped out in the fight, which hopefully that's not the case and he makes a speedy recovery. But yeah, it was a great performance by Ciryl Gane. Really massive pressure going back to France after being dominated in your championship fight. How is that mental psyche gonna help? And he seemed a lot more focused compared to when he was against Jones. When in the lead up to it, he was chilling, playing FIFA, and Jones is looking, what? This guy's playing FIFA and I'm training. So it's good to see that with him. He's got a win on the board. What's next for him? What's next for Ciryl Gane? That pretty obvious. Tom Aspinall was in the crowd. He said after his fight with Tabora, said he's going to be in Paris. He wants to fight a winner of Gane versus Spivak, and then he wants to fight Jon Jones. Well, one part of that mission is complete because Ciryl Gane did win that fight, and for me, if I'm booking this, I'm booking Gane versus Aspinall on the same card as Jones versus Stipe. Makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. And that all depends on what happens in the title fight, which I do expect Jon Jones to beat Stipe, spoiler. But if Jones wins against Stipe, I don't know whether or not Jones would even entertain a rematch of Ciryl, considering how easily he beat him. And I don't know if Tom wins. I don't know if he would really entertain the thought of that matchup, to be honest. So it's going to be interesting. But for me personally, if I'm the UFC matchmakers, Dana, Sean Shelby, Mick Maynard, you're booking Tom Aspinall versus Ciryl Gane, co-main on that card for the Jon Jones Stipe fight. It makes perfect sense. Okay, right. Now to the co-main event. Manon Fiorot, ranked number 2 at flyweight, taking on the former strawweight champion Rose Namajunas, making a flyweight debut. Good fight. Good fight. The result for me was as I expected. I thought Manon Fiorot would win because 1, Rose is making the jump up. 2, she just looked bigger, looked crisper. The only damage Rose really did was with the headbutt, with the deep cut, when the blood's pouring down the face. But apart from that, I thought Fiorot's striking was superb. 29-28 to Fiorot is kind on Rose because I thought Rose didn't look good. For me, Rose looked better than what she did in the Carla fight. Of course, she was going to look better. She moved. She moved a little bit more, threw a little bit more. But for me, for Fiorot, I just talked about Manon Fiorot, biggest win of her career so far. It definitely puts her in that conversation to fight the winner of Grasso Shevchenko in September. So in that respect, this flyweight division is cooking. It's really cooking because you've got Grasso, Shevchenko, you've got Fiorot, you've got Blanchfield coming through, you've got Talia Santos. So there is plenty of competition in that division. And obviously now you've got Rose into the mix. But with the Rose thing, I thought Rose looked small. Like I really think like usually when fighters move up a weight class, they usually give a little bit of time to sort of like let the body fill out for that division. Rose looked very small at flyweight, and I thought she was pretty much outclassed. Her power shots weren't really landing. I think there was only one moment where she sort of stunned Fiorot, and maybe if this was at 115, maybe she'd get dropped her or something, but it just her whole like I thought no Trevor Whitman in the corner. That was probably the biggest shock for me. No Trevor Whitman in your corner. Has she left camp or something? People that watch this, let me know. Has Rose changed camps? Is she no longer part of Whitman's team? Which is crazy to be honest, because I've 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 got an issue when it comes to your loved ones being your head coach. In this case, Pat Barry being Rose's head coach, because you're going to be blinded by like telling your partner what they want to hear, and for me, it's not good. You don't get the best out your fighter if if you're the head coach and you're cornering your misses. It just doesn't make sense. That whole dynamic, it baffles me. Where does that leave Rose? I don't know. I honestly don't know. She wanted to move up to 125 because she's done everything at 115. She's become a two-time champ, beat Whaley twice. But I don't know whether or not her sticking around at 125 is going to be better for her either. And it, for me, my issue was for Rose coming into this fight, it's how much did she want it? Has she got the hunger to go again? And yes, the performance looked better, but I don't know whether that same spring in her step is there to go again for another title push. For me, if I'm Rose, take a lot of time off and really think about what you want to do. And if 125, if this is the division that you're going to stay in, you need to make sure that you bulk up a little bit for that 125. Or whether or not she decides at 115. For me, she looks more natural at 115. 125 really didn't make any sense. And it also dispels the myth that when Rose was doing well of a potential Valentina Rose super fight 125 when she had the belt. Yeah, that's over now. Like that potential dream is now over. But yeah, massive win for Manon Fiorot, biggest win of her career. If I'm her, I'm ringside for Grasso Shevchenko 2. Whether or not she'll get the winner, I'm a bit unsure. Blanchfield's still in the picture. It would not surprise me if they tried to make Blanchfield versus Fiorot. Winner gets the winner of Shevchenko Grasso. So it's going to be interesting to see where that lays out. Let me know what you think in the comments below so far about the Spivak Gane fight and about Fiorot versus Rose. Yes, let's also, next on the card was Benoit Saint Denis versus Thiago Moises. Two fighters that are on the periphery of the top 15. I thought Benoit Denis, I thought he was excellent. Little bit of controversy in this when Saint Denis threw a leg kick to the body kick, and it hit the cup, and then obviously Thiago Moises felt the cup, and then took some time. When you look at the replay, never hit his cup, hit the body. In my opinion, hit the body, and the fight should have been finished there. Which is crazy because I'll touch on it later, but there was another controversy in this event. It's like they were bringing Premier League referees in the football to do the VAR for the UFC. It was crazy. But yeah, Denis got the win. Very, very good win. Sort of puts him in that conversation to get top 15 opponent. Called out for Ziev, Gaethje, Chandler. In his post-fight, he says he wants to be champion in France, which, yeah, why not? Yeah, why not? Lightweight is so exciting at the moment. For me, if I'm booking his next opponent, I'm booking Jalen Turner. For me personally, he's ranked inside the top 15. Benoit Saint Denis is not going to get Fiziev, Gaethje, Chandler level. Getting him to fight Jalen Turner as his entry level top 15 opponent would make the most sense. And for Thiago Moises, yes, I don't know where he goes there. You know, he's a good fighter. I don't know what you do with him. He probably goes further down the lightweight rankings, definitely into that top 20, top 25 range. But he's a good fighter. But I don't know where you do with him. But Benoit Saint Denis, he looks like the real deal. Looks like the real deal for me. Next on the card, Volkan Oezdemir versus Bogdan Guskov. This was a funny matchup. This was probably the most mismatched fight on the card. Did anyone remember when Sean Strickland faced Abdu? Was that German fighter Abdu Magoyev? And then Sean Strickland destroyed him in 2 rounds because the other fighter gassed out in like one. He had 1 round of cardio for a 5-round fight. We just got a rinse and repeat. We got a guy that is ranked 9th at UFC light in their light heavyweight rankings. Former title challenger, fighting against a guy who's 1-0 in the UFC. And looked like a guy that was 1-0 in the UFC. Crazy decision. Like, yes, I know you want Oezdemir to get the win, but why are you just picking up a random guy that's 1-0 in the UFC and go, you know what we're going to do? We're going to put him against Volkan Oezdemir in Paris. And everyone's gone, yeah, great idea. And I'm thinking, what? Crazy matchmaking. Good win for Oezdemir. Where that leaves him, I don't know. I feel like he's fought the who's who. Maybe Anthony Smith, if they've ever fought before. Not too sure, but probably the most mismatched fight on the card in terms of the one fighter's ranking compared to someone that's literally making their second fight in the UFC, really. So for me, that matchup did not make sense whatsoever. Right, next fight, William Gomis versus Yanis Gemuri. This one, most controversial decision of the night. Anyone that's a boxing fan, they've seen the Dubois Usyk. Was it low? Was it not? We got the same thing here. So Gomez throws a kick to the body, kick to the mid area, and it hits the cup. Well, looks like a clean shot. Gemi Muri cowers like he's in pain, can't continue, ref stops the fight. He says that it's a low blow. Right, the replay happens. I will put a picture up somewhere of the shot. But when he kicks it, grazes the cup and then hits the body. Which, in mixed martial arts, that is a low blow. Even though it's not hit him directly in the cup. It's not a groin strike. It's messed with the cup, which does count as a low blow. Clips the cup and then hits him in the midriff, the midriff. Is it the midriff area or around where the belly button is? For me, that is a low blow. That is it's more clear than boxing for me because the shorts are so tight you can actually see where the foot lands. And we've seen awful judging this year, awful scorecards. If you watch mine and Callum's watch-alongs on the Sanderson show for UFC events, we always joke saying there's going to be one fight on this card that the judges are just going to not going to watch, and then they're just going to be like, okay, here's the scorecards, and it's completely wrong. This is the worst decision in modern mixed martial arts. And the thing that makes it even worse is that you have a video assistant. You have your own version of VAR, which, to be honest, the UFC has never really used. I can't remember when they've actually used a video tech to sort of go, no, this is the wrong decision. I've never seen it being used before, and it's unfair on both fighters, both French fighters, fighting against each other, which was odd matchmaking. But for Miguri, you've just lost his 9-fight win streak over this decision. Yes, the fight was close. It was a very technical fight. I had it 1-1 on the scorecards heading into the third round with it all to play for. But yeah, I thought it was one of the worst calls. And if I'm Jim Guri's team, I'm getting that appeal, and it should be rightfully overturned for a no contest. Because of the strike. Nothing against Gomis. This is not an attack on William Gomis, who's a very talented fighter. It's not his fault. It's the judging, it's the officials that I have noticed recently that they have been on the slide a little bit, which needs to stop. To be honest, because if you get moments like that, could you imagine if that is let's say Sean Strickland versus Israel Adesanya next weekend, that me and Callum will be doing a watch long on the Sanson show. Make sure you will check that out next week. Could you imagine if Izzy no, okay, let's imagine Sean Strickland threw the kick, a similar kick to Gomis, grazes the cup of Izzy. Izzy's like, the cup, it's got a low blow, and the ref goes, you're done, and costs Izzy his belt. Do you think that they would not restart it from that point, give Izzy time to recover, or do you think they'd let that type of decision slide? And they have to rectify this. They have to rectify it, turn it to a no contest, because if you let this go, this will happen again. This will happen again, and fighters will be like, okay, I may be able to get away with that. So it needs to be stamped out straight away. And then we'll go on to the final fight on the card, which was Morgan Charette versus Manolo Zecchini. Morgan making his UFC debut from Cage Warriors. Yeah, great fight whilst it lasted. I thought Charette was better on the feet, good striking, good kicks, and got finished with the liver kick, which is starting to come back. Getting people getting finished with like the kicks to the body, which is severely underrated. Body kicks are severely underrated, because if you hit the liver, then that's sort of like that's game over. That's game over for me. But yeah, brilliant UFC debut win for Morgan Charcheri. And yeah, that tops up a brilliant night for the UFC in Paris. From Ciryl Gane winning to Manon Fiorot winning. I think for an advertisement for French MMA in general, future's looking really bright, because there's some really talented fighters coming out of France. Let's see how many of them will become world champions. I've got a feeling that Manon Fiorot she is probably the closest to probably capturing UFC gold than anyone else that fought on this card that's French, just because how close to the top of the ranking she is. I do expect her to get a title shot next after Grasso Shevchenko. Ciryl, don't know how likely he is to win the gold and anytime soon if Jon Jones stick around. Benoit Denis, he's ranked outside the top 15. He's going to have a lot of work to do to get up there. Gomis, I think he needs a top 15 fight at featherweight so he can make his ascendancy. Morgan Charcheri, he's just made his debut. Let's see how he goes. But yeah, as an event, superb event, crowd electric. Yeah, the UFC will definitely be back in Paris next year. 100%. There's no way that they're gonna not go back to Paris after this. But yeah, as a whole, great event. And then next week we have UFC 293 in Sydney. It'll be Israel Adesanya facing against Sean Strickland. A preview will be out with myself and Callum this week at some point. So make sure you check that out here on this channel. Also, everyone that's watched the video, make sure to hit the like, share, and subscribe button. Road to 200 subscribers. We are on the way. Yeah, and make sure that you subscribe to the Sanderson Show as well for our watch long next weekend. And make sure you tune in for Combat Catch Up on Tuesday as well. Yes, everyone that's tuned in, a massive thank you. And we'll see you all very soon.